On a frostbitten New Year's Eve, the Walsh household, nestled in the whispering woods of Cohasset, Massachusetts, was a haven of warmth. The aroma of a sumptuous dinner wafted from the kitchen, where Brian Walsh meticulously prepared the evening's feast. Anna, radiant as ever, greeted guests with her signature blend of grace and charm, her laughter mingling with the clinking of glasses. Photographs captured the night's happiness, now frozen in time as chilling reminders. For on the dawn of a new year, the echoes of celebration faded into an unsettling silence. Anna, effervescent and ever-present, had vanished without a trace. In the dim, early hours of a January morning, a thick mist clung to the hushed streets of Cohasset, Massachusetts, as the town's inhabitants stirred slowly to life. But in the Walsh household, a stately yet modest New England home tucked away among the bare branches of winter, the silence was palpable. The familiar warmth of home was replaced by an unsettling stillness, a stark contrast to the vibrant life that had once filled its rooms. Anna Walsh, beloved wife and devoted mother, was gone without a trace. Just a few days earlier, the house had been alive with the laughter of friends and family, the clinking of champagne glasses heralding a new year filled with promise. Yet now, echoes of that joyous night seemed to linger, a haunting reminder of Anna's absence. Outside, the sky was painted with the gray hues of early winter, a fitting backdrop for the somber reality unfolding within. Anna Liabagic had always been a woman of remarkable resilience. Born amidst the turmoil of war-torn Serbia in 1983, she possessed a tenacity that had carried her through a life of challenges and triumphs. As a young woman in Belgrade, her love for French literature guided her through a degree at the University of Belgrade, before embarking on a bold new chapter in the United States in 2005. Settling in Virginia, she carved out a life through sheer determination, rising from her role as a hotel housekeeper to securing prestigious opportunities in luxury hotels across New England. It was during one of these ventures that she met Brian Walsh at the Wheatley Hotel in Lenox, Massachusetts. Brian Walsh was a man of contradictions. Born into affluence as the son of a renowned neurologist, his life was marred by neglect and emotional turmoil. He wore his privilege like an ill-fitting suit, never quite able to find the peace and fulfillment that his upbringing promised. His childhood was a series of boarding schools and unmet expectations, leaving him with a deep-seated feeling of abandonment. Despite his privilege, Brian's life was a tapestry of poor decisions and dubious ventures, culminating in his entanglement in fraudulent art dealings. Yet amidst the chaos of his life, he and Anna found a connection that led to marriage and the birth of their 3 sons. As the investigation into Anna's disappearance began, the narrative of their seemingly harmonious life began to unravel. Detectives probing into her sudden vanishing uncovered the fractures beneath the surface. Suspicion crept in like the January chill, directed towards Brian, whose recent actions and troubled history painted a picture far removed from the doting husband and father he claimed to be. On the morning of January 1st, Brian told detectives Anna had left for Logan International Airport, supposedly called away by a work emergency. However, evidence was elusive. No rideshare records, no flight bookings, just the unnerving silence of her unused credit cards. The timeline of Brian's account was riddled with inconsistencies, each one a thread that detectives pulled at, unraveling the fabric of his story. Anna's dual life emerged. A successful career woman with a secret romance in Washington, D.C. The revelation of her affair added a complex layer to the already tangled web of her disappearance. Brian's jealousy, compounded by a private investigator hired to confirm his suspicions, fueled a motive that investigators could not ignore. As the search intensified, the once cozy Walsh home became a focal point for local law enforcement. Canine units scoured the snow-dusted grounds, while divers braved the frigid streams nearby, all in search of a clue that might lead them to Anna. Their efforts were met with a relentless nothingness, the cold refusing to relinquish any secrets. In the basement of the Walsh residence, however, investigators stumbled upon a dark discovery, a bloodied knife, a silent witness to what the walls of the Walsh home had seen. This grim find prompted a deeper dive into the couple's troubled past and Brian's increasingly suspicious behavior. The narrative shifted from a missing person to a potential crime scene, each piece of evidence adding weight to the growing shadows of doubt surrounding Brian Walsh. The world around the Walsh family began to crumble, a stark reminder of how quickly life could shift from celebration to chaos, from warmth to cold uncertainty. As the investigation pressed on, Anna's presence lingered in every corner of the home, a haunting absence that left an indelible mark on all who sought to uncover the truth of her fate. The murder investigation, as they placed him miles away from the Mollis farm at the time of Amy's death. With this avenue closed, the detective's attention swung back to the farm and its inhabitants. The Mollis farm, shrouded in the early twilight of late autumn, cast long, eerie shadows across the fields, the bare branches of the surrounding trees clawing at the cloud-laden sky. It was a place where the mundane and the macabre seemed to collide, and within its boundaries, the air was thick with a palpable tension, as if the land itself held its breath in anticipation of revealing dark secrets. Inside the farmhouse, Todd Mollis sat stoically, his face a mask of rural determination, yet his eyes betrayed a flicker of something deeper, a storm of emotions barely contained. The investigators, seasoned and perceptive, noticed the subtle shifts in his demeanor. To them, Todd was like the land he tilled, unyielding on the surface, yet full of complexities beneath. As they questioned him, the room felt charged, as if the very walls were listening. Todd's story was straightforward, almost rehearsed. He spoke of the day's chores, the separation of tasks, and the unfortunate discovery of Amy's lifeless body. His words were measured, yet his voice carried the weight of a man used to the solitude of fields, not the probing inquiries of law enforcement. The detectives listened, their expressions inscrutable, their minds sifting through words and pauses, seeking the grain of truth amid the chaff of deception. Outside, the wind picked up, rustling the dried husks of corn left in the fields, creating a mournful symphony that seemed to underscore the tragedy. The farm, with its neat rows and silent barns, stood in stark contrast to the turmoil brewing within the investigation. The red shed, where Amy's body was found, loomed like a specter, a silent witness to her final moments. As the days unfolded, the community around the Mollis farm found itself engulfed in whispers and suspicions, the air heavy with speculation. Neighbors who once exchanged pleasantries at the local feed store now avoided eye contact, their conversations hushed, their glances furtive. The Mollis name, once synonymous with hard work and integrity, now carried a stain, a shadow that spread with each passing day. In the heart of this storm stood Todd Mollis, a man whose life had been built on the bedrock of routine and resilience. Yet, under the scrutiny of the law, his defenses began to show cracks. The detectives, relentless in their pursuit of truth, delved deeper into his past, peeling back layers of marital discord and betrayal that had festered beneath the surface of the couple's seemingly idyllic life. Their investigation revealed a portrait of a marriage strained by infidelity and mistrust. Friends and acquaintances spoke in hushed tones of Amy's unhappiness, of her dreams of a life beyond the confines of the farm. And yet, despite these revelations, evidence remained elusive, the truth stubbornly out of reach. The farm, ever patient, watched as the investigation wove its intricate web, its fields lying fallow, waiting for the cycle of life to resume. But for the Mollis family, normalcy was a distant memory, replaced by the relentless march of legal proceedings and the ever-present specter of justice. In the end, it was a combination of forensic evidence, witness testimony, and the inexorable pressure of the investigation that unspooled the tightly wound threads of Todd Mollis's carefully constructed life. The farm, with its silent barns and whispering fields, bore witness to the ultimate unraveling, a story of love turned to betrayal, and of a man whose desperation led him down a path from which there was no return. shake the unsettling feeling that had settled over them like a dark, oppressive mist. As they gathered in the dimly lit deliberation room, the gravity of their decision weighed heavily upon their shoulders, echoing the stillness and somberness that had pervaded the courtroom throughout the trial. The room was cloaked in an almost eerie silence, broken only by the soft shuffling of papers and the nervous tapping of fingers against the polished surface of the table. Each juror seemed lost in their own thoughts, their expressions a mosaic of contemplation and unease. The air was thick with tension, a palpable reminder of the lives intertwined by the tragedy they were tasked with unraveling. In the corner, a small window allowed a sliver of daylight to creep in, casting long shadows that danced across the walls. The soft hum of distant traffic was a faint reminder of the world outside, a world that felt so far removed from the grim reality of the case that lay before them. The evidence had been presented meticulously, layer by layer, like peeling back the skin of an onion to reveal the pungent core. The harrowing testimonies of Amy's friends and family had painted a portrait of a life overshadowed by fear and control, a life extinguished too soon. The words of her lover, Jerry, had lingered in the air, a haunting echo of a love that had dared to exist in the shadows. The jurors revisited the digital traces left behind on Todd's iPad, those sinister searches that spoke of a mind preoccupied with betrayal and retribution. They considered the chilling implications of each phrase, each keystroke a thread in the web of circumstantial evidence that surrounded Todd Mollis. As the hours slipped by, the jurors debated and pondered, their voices rising and falling like the tide. Some argued vehemently for Todd's guilt, their voices thick with emotion, the corners of their eyes drawn tight with conviction. Others were more hesitant, wrestling with the weight of reasonable doubt and the implications of condemning a man based on the circumstantial pieces of a complex puzzle. They replayed the 911 call, the whispered accusations faint yet unmistakable, like the distant rumble of an approaching storm. The room seemed to hold its breath, the silence between the harsh clicks of the tape recorder amplifying the chilling undertones of Todd's words. "Cheating sir," he had murmured, the venom in his voice a stark contrast to the frantic cadence of his breathing, a chilling testament to a rage that simmered beneath his composed exterior. The jurors exchanged glances, the impact of the whispered words reverberating through them like the tolling of a distant bell. It was as if those whispers had unlocked something within them, a key turning in the lock of a decision that now felt inevitable. And yet, as they prepared to cast their final votes, an air of solemnity descended upon them, the gravity of their decision a silent specter in the room. Each juror felt the weight of responsibility pressing down upon them, a heavy mantle of justice and morality. The foreman, a man of few words but steady resolve, rose from his chair, his gaze sweeping across the faces of his fellow jurors. There was a moment of collective breath, a shared acknowledgement of the journey they had undertaken. "We find the defendant," he began, his voice steady yet tinged with the solemnity of their task, "guilty." The word hung in the air, a single syllable that carried the weight of countless lives forever changed. It was as if the very walls of the deliberation room had absorbed the gravity of their decision, the whispered echoes of justice mingling with the silent prayers for the truth to find its place amidst the shadows of the past. As the jurors filed out, their faces a mixture of relief and somber reflection. The world outside beckoned with the promise of light and life. Yet, the shadow of the Mollis tragedy lingered, a reminder that justice, though served, often walks hand in hand with sorrow. The whispers of that dark day would echo long into the future, a testament to the complexities of love, betrayal, and the relentless pursuit of truth. To be late or had changed her plans. The eerie silence of the deserted reservoir, where the only sounds were the gentle lapping of water against the banks and the distant calls of birds settling in for the night, cloaked their mounting panic in a shroud of foreboding. The final text Ashley had sent to her parents, a simple "be home soon," now felt like a hollow echo in the back of Marie's mind. As the evening sky deepened into hues of indigo, the Doolittles' hearts sank further into an abyss of uncertainty. Their daughter's absence was an anomaly in the tapestry of their lives, woven with the threads of routine and predictability. The reservoir, once a place of peaceful retreat, now loomed large as the last known location of their beloved daughter. Tanner's truck, a hulking presence beside Ashley's abandoned vehicle, stood as a silent witness to whatever had transpired. Its darkened windows offered no hint of the tragedy that had unfolded within its confines. It was as if the truck itself, much like the reservoir, had absorbed the energy of a moment whose echoes would reverberate through the community for years to come. Inside the truck, the air still held the faint fragrance of Ashley's favorite vanilla-scented lotion, mingling incongruously with the sharp tang of gunpowder. The seats bore silent testimony to the struggle, marked by crumpled fabric and the impression of hurried, desperate movements. The pistol, cold and final, had been the instrument that shattered not just Ashley's life, but also the innocence of a community that saw her as a beacon of hope and promise. In the days that followed, the revelation of Ashley's murder unraveled the fabric of the picturesque town. Tanner, a boy who had once been seen as just another face in a sea of teenage angst and aspirations, was now the focus of a collective disbelief. His actions, driven by a toxic mix of obsession and despair, were met with a stupefying shock that rippled through every corner of the town. Meanwhile, the once vibrant images of Ashley, her radiant smile, the echo of her laughter, her generous spirit, began to flicker like old film reels in the memories of those who loved her. Her absence became a haunting presence, one that lingered like a delicate perfume in rooms she would never again enter. The courtroom, where Tanner would eventually face justice, echoed with the heart-wrenching testimonies of those who knew Ashley best. Her parents, sitting pale and resolute, clung to each other as they listened to the recounting of their daughter's final hours. Each sentence, each word, seemed to slice through the air with the sharpness of the truth, a truth that was almost unbearable to confront. Tanner's demeanor during the trial was a chilling juxtaposition of the boy he once was and the man he had become. His vacant gaze, seemingly unfocused, betrayed no remorse, no flicker of understanding of the devastation he had wrought. To those watching, he appeared as a ghost, a hollow shell occupied by the memories of what could have been. The jury's deliberation, though inevitable, was a mere formality. The weight of Tanner's actions had already sealed his fate in the court of public opinion. Yet, as the foreman delivered the unanimous verdict, it served as a solemn affirmation of the justice that Ashley's parents had sought. In the aftermath, the community gathered to honor Ashley's memory, their shared grief a testament to the light she had shone in her too brief life. As they released balloons into the sky, each one a silent prayer for the girl who had embodied so much hope, they vowed to remember the lessons her tragic story had imparted. Love, once tainted by control and jealousy, was now reclaimed through empathy and understanding. A legacy Ashley left behind in the hearts of those who carried her memory forward. The dawn was just beginning to break over the Colorado skyline, casting a muted light on the small, isolated property in Colbar. The air was thick with an early morning chill that seemed to penetrate even the bravest of souls. A wildlife ranger, stoic and steady, stood watch over the desolate scene, his eyes fixed on the shabby figure moving lethargically in the distance. Tanner, the young man at the center of a community's grief, seemed oblivious to the world around him. Shadows played upon his features, painting a portrait of a man consumed by darkness. His movements were mechanical as he tossed blood-soaked rags into a nearby field. The sight was unsettling, and a silent horror began to seep into the air, a foreboding that something was terribly amiss. Around him, the property lay still, an eerie quietude clinging to the trees like mist, punctuated only by the distant call of a bird. Tanner, disheveled and haunted by his own demons, continued his grim tasks, moving with an unsettling calmness. He dragged a roll-up mat to a woodpile, his actions deliberate yet detached, as if he was merely a player in someone else's twisted game. The neighbor, who had initially confirmed the truck's presence, watched from a safe distance, heart pounding with a growing dread. Beside him, the wildlife ranger maintained his vigil, eyes narrowing with suspicion and an unspoken understanding of the scene unraveling before him. When Tanner emerged from the house once more, cradling a heavy blanket, the world seemed to stop. There, jutting out from the coarse fabric, was a human arm, lifeless and accusing in the pale morning light. The blood drained from the ranger's face as the reality settled in, a reality he had hoped to avoid. The arrival of the sheriff's deputies was swift and decisive. The crunch of gravel underfoot and the low murmurs of officers filled the air, a stark contrast to the earlier silence. The law enforcement team moved with practiced precision, their somber faces reflecting the gravity of the situation. Tanner was apprehended without incident, taken into custody as the weight of his actions bore down upon him. As the blanket was unfurled, revealing the tragic remains of Ashley Marie Diddle, a collective gasp seemed to echo through the surrounding landscape. Her lifeless form was a harrowing testament to the violence she had endured, a young life snuffed out in a moment of senseless brutality. The stark truth of Ashley's death reverberated through the courtroom and community alike, a heavy shroud of mourning enveloping those left behind. Tanner's story, a patchwork of deceit and desperation, was laid bare for all to see. His initial claims, flimsy as a gust of wind, crumbled under scrutiny, leaving only the cold, hard facts of his intent. As the prosecution meticulously dismantled Tanner's narrative, the courtroom held its breath, the air thick with tension and disbelief. Their argument, anchored in meticulous evidence and the chilling premeditation of Tanner's actions, painted a picture too vivid to ignore. The revolver, a single-action firearm that necessitated deliberate reloading after each shot, underscored the calculated nature of Ashley's murder. The defense fought valiantly, yet their efforts were akin to shadows against the noonday sun. Tanner's demeanor on the stand, a mix of hollow remorse and desperate rationalization, did little to sway the outcome. His confession, riddled with inconsistencies and half-truths, only darkened the path to justice. In the end, the verdict was clear and uncompromising. The gavel fell with a resounding finality, sealing Tanner's fate and delivering a bittersweet justice for Ashley. Yet, even as the sentence was pronounced, the courtroom remained a battleground of emotions, a place where anger, sorrow, and a profound sense of loss mingled in the air. Through the tragedy, Ashley's memory became a beacon, a call to action for a community determined to prevent such heartache from befalling others. Her legacy, a mixture of love and resilience, lived on as a powerful reminder of the urgent need to confront and end the scourge of dating violence. The pursuit of justice had been arduous, but in the end, it was a testament to the enduring strength of those who refused to let Ashley's light be extinguished. Years for the kidnapping charge. The courtroom, once a theater of raw emotion and relentless pursuit of truth, descended into a tense, painful silence. Justice had spoken, echoing through the hearts of all present, a cold, unyielding reminder that darkness cannot hide forever. The air, heavy with the scent of bitter closure and whispered regrets, lingered as the weight of Tanner's actions bore down upon him, sealing his fate. In that moment, the gavel's echo was not just the end of a trial, but the beginning of a legacy, ensuring that Ashley's light would shine beyond this world, guiding others away from the shadows of violence.